Hello and welcome to Summer STEAM Challenges with the Mine Air Force Base Library. So we've moved on to the second theme of our challenges. This is the food and shelter one, but we're actually going to go very basic. So we're going to actually show you how to do some knots. And these knots can be very useful for some different ways of finding or creating food and shelter. So one is a slip knot and one is a square knot. If you're doing the STEAM Challenge game, if you can master both knots, you'll get a bonus point. So it'll be worth 2 points even though this is a level 1 challenge. But you only need to do one knot to get your 1 point. So anyway, slip knot first because the slip knot's easier. So let's talk first a little bit about knots. So when we call a knot like a strong knot versus a weak knot, there's actually science and math that goes into why a knot is strong or weak. So there's different ways that the different parts of the knot interact with each other. First of all, there's the friction generated with the parts of the thread rubbing on each other. There's that. Then there's the topology of the knot, which is basically how the different parts of the knot interact with each other. So there's twist fluctuation, which is what locks a knot on itself. And then there's, so that it doesn't slip, basically. So you can sort of see here, I've done the square knot. I pull, because the knot is basically literally locked on itself, it's not slipping very much. Now this one, there's not a whole lot of, it's kind of, this one because the cord just is, it's not the best material for knotting, but it works for this because it really makes it easy for you to see what I'm doing. Alright, then we have what is called the crossings, which is how many times the pieces of rope cross each other in different directions. And that is where the square knot actually is not the best knot. We're doing the best simple knots for survival situations. We're not doing the best knots for survival situations because obviously a knot that has the threads crossing each other a whole lot more is stronger, but it's also a whole lot difficult to make. So we're keeping it simple. And then there's the circulation, which is how the strands move against each other when the knot is tightened. And the more strands that move in the opposite directions, the stronger the knot is. So the slip knot is kind of funny because it is in some ways the weakest of knots, but it is also a very useful knot. We'll go into detail how to tie it in a minute. And I just did the other way. I did the way I like to do slip knots, which is what I just did, but we're going to show you an easier way. So a slip knot, it basically, you can sort of see, it has one side is knotted, the side with a very simple knot, and this side it's in a loop, and it's basically loose, which means you can tighten it very easily. So, survival-wise, I mean, a slip knot is useful for a bunch of things. You can make a snare to catch some animals, for meat. You can make things with it. Basically, crochet is a bunch of slip knots hooked together. That's what crochet is. So you can make a rope, or make some clothing, or make a bag, or whatever you want, if you have some idea of how to do that with a slip knot. So we're going to start with the slip knot, actually. This is also what's cool about slip knot. See the slip knot? See the slip knot, it disappears. Because if you just pull it right, it just slips right out. Alright, so the easier way to make a slip knot, you take a loop, so this is a loop, but then you twist the loop. You can see that it's twisted this way, because I'm kind of going, whereas if I twist it just like that, so it's not actually so we have twisted, it has to go twist all the way. If you just twist halfway and then try to grab it, and it's not grab it like this, the loop's gone. So you have to twist it enough so that the loop stays. So it's like that. And then you pull the long end of the string through the twist that you just made. And then voila, you have a slip knot. So again, take a loop, twist it, then reach through the loop to grab the long end of the string, pull the long end of the string through to tighten, and you have a slip knot. Also use it to tie things down, or to tie the neck of a bag. So there's lots of uses, but the slip knot's key is that it's weak, but it's weak in a very special, defined way where it's supposed to slip, where you want it to slip. The other side you don't want to slip so much. You just want the one side to slip. Alright. So the square knot. I'm gonna have some other threads because the threads you can see. I'm gonna do it both with this one and with with these two because these are different colors. So sometimes that makes it a little bit easier to see which side is which. But I'll do it with this one first, so I can sort of demonstrate some of the properties. So put one piece over the other piece, and then take the one that you put over the top, pull that through the bottom, which is basically a big loop, right? Pull a little bit further because I want a little bit more stuff to work with. Now that same end, which is now on this side, go over the top of the other one again, and pull the end through the loop that you just made. And you know you have it right because when you have this, where you have basically two loops that are connected together. And this is, I mean, if you want a knot that doesn't slip, this knot, it tightens, but it doesn't slip much. No matter which end you pull, it doesn't slip a whole lot. So that's why it's a strong knot. Whereas opposed to the granny knot, which is very similar to the square knot. So the granny knot, if I do the one end over the other end and pull through, but then I use, instead of, let's see, one end, the other end. See, this is why it's easier to do the other one. But if I use the other end, that one over, you end up with a twisted knot that's sometimes called a granny knot because it's not very strong. But it's easy to make a granny knot by accident when you're trying to make a square knot. Especially if it's, you know, thread of the same color. So we're going to go to the different colors here. So again, I think some people say left over right. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. So I'm going to do the blue over the green, left over, or my left over right. And then wrap it around or pull through if you can consider that a big huge loop. And then that same end over the other one again, and then through the loop there, and then you have your square knot. And you can see you have your two loops, and it tightens down pretty well. And actually, unlike that, because that's kind of slippy material, this one, no matter which end I pull, it stays pretty solid. In fact, the only way I can loosen it is if I actually pull on those two little loops, the ends of those two little loops. But then once I do pull on those two little loops, it's pretty easy to take apart. So again, left over right, wrap around, right over left, pull it through the little loop, and then we have our two little loops. So that's a square knot. So the square knot is really the simplest of the strong knots, which is why we're showing it to you. Because it's good for holding things. Like if you're going to tie a rope around your waist, you wouldn't want it to tighten because that would hurt, right? So if you tied a rope around your waist, this would be a good knot to use so it doesn't slip, so it doesn't tighten too much. And again, pull the little loops, and ta-da, it comes apart again. So that's the end of this challenge. It's basically, remember, if you can do both knots, you get a bonus point. It's the square knot and the slip knot.